coming, the sun's zooming in, meltdown expected, the wheat is good there, engines stop running, but I have no fear, 'cause London is drowning.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the By the Minute Arsenal podcast. A lot to discuss this week, and generally speaking, positive news, which I don't think we were necessarily expecting, which is all jolly nice. Introductions first. I am Matt H. We have with me Matt V. Hello, Matt.
Good evening. Yeah, incredibly, they did not let us down one bit.
No, we will get into the discussions about that later on. You can see we're already sounding quite surprised about this, which perhaps isn't a good sign for the health of the team. But never mind, we'll carry on. And I'm delighted to say we have back after his week away last week. We have Pete. Hello, Pete.
Hello, Matt. Stuck at work, but happy about the football. So
there we are. There's a trooper, if ever there was one. Right. Well, let's get into it then. We've got two games to look back on and two to look forward to, actually. The two to look back on. Well, only one place to start. Last Thursday night, North London was taken over by 20,000 apparently 20,000 Cologne fans. There's lots to discuss here about the before the game stuff. I would like to start with an opening rant, which is that. We've got a lot to cover, so I won't go on for ages, but essentially two issues here. The number of people coming from Cologne, you could see there was going to be, not problems necessarily, but it was just going to be an overwhelming number of Cologne fans, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. Two, the thing the club could have done more about, I think, is the ticketing. Now, I know Pete put some tickets via the ticket exchange in a completely above-board manner. The problem is we don't know what happened to those after they were done, because you go from having your little plastic cards to having your paper tickets, I believe, is how it works, and in theory that's very easy to pass that on to other people. So the good news was it turned out there didn't really seem to be any major problems. A few scuffles is always the word they use in the papers, isn't there, when there's nothing major much has gone on. But I don't know, I just think this I could go on for a long time, but I'm not going to. I just think the club could have really done much better there, because whilst the game seems to have gone off without major problems, there's always that potential for something. It only needs a couple of people to kick off and things could get nasty. So I don't know, I just want to have a little whine about that. Pete, as a season ticket holder, do you have any thoughts on the whole situation?
I can't say I was as bothered as you are.
I don't know, it just seemed like a terribly badly organised thing for a supposedly multinational or international company, if you like.
I was quite glad that all our tickets went pretty quickly on ticket exchange.
Yeah, we got the money back, so that's the main point here.
A bunch of Germans got them. I mean, they wanted to see the game. We didn't. I think we have a bit of a problem that, we're so used to complete segregation of fans that we can't really accept the idea of sitting next to opposition fans, which I think is a bit sad, really.
No, I do agree with that, but I was just putting it in the context of we're not used to it. That's the problem.
Yeah, and that's it, and that's a bit of a problem. I mean, the main thing I had a bit of a problem with is I couldn't see why actually at all kickoff had to be delayed. I think that's what the club and the police, it seems, couldn't deal with, and I don't understand why, because they must have been aware much earlier in the day that there were vast amounts of Cologne fans in. I don't believe that all of them, or however many above the 3,000 allocation, all came without tickets. I don't believe that at all. So I don't believe there were 20,000 extra people on the street. I just think that they were surprised suddenly to find out that there were many more Cologne fans, and it shouldn't be any. As long as people are ticket holders, I don't see why it's any harder to get them into the stadium than it normally is. So I'm surprised by that, and that's what I would moan about more than anything else, just not being able to deal with it on the day.
It's a good point. Sorry, go on.
Well, I understand it did lead for a difficult situation for some people. I mean, for instance, the family enclosure, you can understand there. You don't want to be in a situation where you've got lots of away fans in there, making it fairly intimidating. It's the family enclosure. But I don't believe across the rest of the stadium it would have been intimidating. It was, as I say, we should be able to deal with sitting with opposition fans. They do over the rest of Europe. So,
within reason, though. Obviously, we don't want Chelsea or Spurs fans sitting next to us. But I take your point.
Certain games you want to be, but this was a game that no one cared about. They were all nice, friendly people looking to make friends and have fun on a night out, and very excited to be back in Europe. There wasn't really any trouble as far as I could see. So, although I can see it could have gone horribly wrong, it certainly didn't. And I think there isn't that much to be too upset about.
All right, it's worth noting. You make a good point actually somewhere in there that we're not really talking about people coming in without tickets, are we? I'm sure a couple tried, but that didn't seem to be a problem. It was purely where people are sitting. And yeah, I agree that it should have been more comfortably done. But I think what they then tried to do is put everyone in the same place, and that was what delayed things. It just didn't seem particularly well organised. But then perhaps coming at it from the other way, your slightly more sort of positive approach, maybe it could have, they didn't do that bad, really, given the situation. Matt, any thoughts on this particular area?
I think just from a sheer weight of people's perspective, they could have been a bit more prepared. I think everyone saw it throughout the day. An invasion force of Cologne thing marching through London, Oxford Circus. So it was pretty obvious there's going to be a huge number of them rocking up at the Emirates. Clearly, they weren't sure what they were going to do in terms of letting them into the home section or not, and delayed kickoffs. I agree with Pete. Probably wasn't hugely necessary, but I think it's more the problem was, I guess, more of a potential thing. Just because we're so used to having complete segregation, all of a sudden to have everything so mixed. And let's say if Arsenal hadn't have come back and if Arsenal had have lost, tempers may have been a bit more high. So I think it was fine in the end. But yeah, they could have dealt with it a bit better, and it'll be interesting to see if it's a problem in the other matches. I don't think other clubs will send as many fans as Cologne did, but the other two teams certainly have more infamous ultra sections, shall we say? So we'll see how that goes.
Yes, I'd sort of forgotten about that side of things. Well, yes, I think we may see the number of police we saw sort of towards the end of the game or halfway through the game. Then we may see them at the start. Yeah. But conversely, I imagine they've got different plans in place. But as we're alluding to, it generally was pretty good-natured stuff. But there may have been the odd bit of intimidation felt. I think Pete makes a good point about the family enclosure not really being the place for it. But let's not worry about it anymore. It went off. We've had I've had my say, and you've said yours a bit as well. So let's look at the game then. Alexis starting was perhaps the most interesting point in terms of the team news. And yet again, after 10 minutes, we thought we'd concede an early goal, but I'm almost willing to let them off on this one because it was quite a special one. Ospina dealing sort of with a ball through, but then it falling to Cordoba, who did one of these sort of 45 yards back over the keeper. Matt, I know you've expressed issues with Ospina before. Is there anything you'd like to say about that particular one?
Wow, I mean, I don't think you can, or it's not a great clearance, but 9 times out of 10 you're not expecting the opposition to tuck it away like that. Most of the time you either see them not even attempt it or they'll balloon it miles over. It was a great finish. I feel like if you're going to come though and you're going to clear it, just kick it out, get rid of it, don't create any danger, don't kick it straight back sort of into the middle of the pitch. But as happy as I usually am to moan at Ospina, usually for rolling around unnecessarily, I think you probably have to more give credit to the very good finish rather than blaming him, even if I didn't think that at the time.
No, that's very generous of you. I think that's fair enough. I think he sort of did the first job, and it's a little unlucky to have it coming back again. Pete, any thoughts on the team or the team news specifically, or generally the first half performance, which was flat? I think this might be fair to say.
Yeah, a little flat, but I didn't think it was dull in any way. We seemed pretty up for it. I know we didn't make a lot of chances, but I think we certainly had the best of it. And other than the one horrible moment, which I think probably was down to Ospina's mistake more than anything, I thought we did reasonably well. And it was nice that we changed things at half-time and took a different approach in the second half.
Half-time, a lovely segue to exactly the next point I had. Now, Rob Holding, I'm afraid, got substituted, and Matt, when I was doing this by the minute, I think Matt commented that we've cursed him, given our praise for him on the pod over the last season or so. But if you want a super sub, Kolasinac seems to be the chap. Comes on, and within 5 minutes, absolutely hoofs a left footer into the corner. One of my favourite types of goals, that dropping volley, catches it beautifully, little bit of curve on it, beautifully into the far side. Matt, we needed that after to start the second half, didn't we?
We definitely did. Score as soon as possible to get it level. He scares me. If I was on the pitch, if I saw him running towards me in celebration, I would be going nowhere near. That when he hits it, it certainly stays hit. It was a great finish, and I think as you said, we took off Holden. Did we go to a back four? I think we might have done.
Yes, I think that was the idea, wasn't it? Yes. Which
we seem to have done a fair few times to try and save games this season. I think Klasnick's coming on benefited Maitland-Niles too. He probably wasn't having the best of games on the left, so we looked much better when Klasnick came on. But yeah, a great finish, and certainly nothing the goalkeeper could do there.
Then we had our third great goal of the game. Sanchez, having picked up the ball from, I think it was an Iwobi pass, wasn't it? Pushed him out wide to the left. He came back, cut inside, and let fly, and curled it nicely into the corner. Pete, nice to see him. Nice to see him scoring.
Woof.
Well, there we are. Exactly, and it was a great finish, wasn't it?
It was fantastic, and nice to see that he still wants to do it for us more than anything else. And he got a. I think it will make sure he doesn't get any poor receptions in the future when he comes on. Let's see lots more of that this season, Alexis. He was obviously well up for it again, and looking like he's getting back to full fitness and back to sharpness. And if he can do more stuff like that, it's going to be great.
Yeah, he played the full 90. We did have one more goal though, Bellerin, and a word I think for Jack Wiltshire as well. He came on at some point. When did he come on? With about 20 minutes ago, and his lovely dummy step over, whatever you want to call it, to leave the ball to run through for Bellerin to slot it under the keeper was, or possibly through the keeper's legs, if I remember right. I may be wrong with that. Was a nice finish. Any word? We'll go to Pete for this first. Any word on Wiltshire? Sort of those last 20 minutes.
Again, that was nice to see him back in the team and looking like he might actually be able to do a job for us going forward. You know, I turned round to Perd at the time and said, "How long do you think he's going to last for?" But he made it through the whole time on the pitch, and so he wasn't on the bench for Chelsea, was he? But it does suggest that maybe if we can get him to be playing a few more of these sorts of games, Carabao Cup and the Europa League, maybe he will be able to stake a claim to in bigger games.
You'd certainly think he could, to use your phrase, do a job. Seems like a pretty good way of putting it. Matt, any thoughts on seeing him back?
Yeah, I'm really happy to see him back. He looked sharp. Will be interesting to see how much we do play him. We play Ramsey Jack obviously most games, and El Neni seems to be the first backup choice. So it'll be interesting to see whether we see Wilshere on the bench more, or whether he is just kept for these sort of games.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, we've zipped through that game a bit because obviously we have a lot to talk about with Chelsea, and I don't want to keep everyone listening for hours and hours. One other point I would like to make about the game: the lining of Arsene Wenger's coat was the pinkest thing I've ever seen. I don't know where that came from. I haven't seen it since. He didn't need to wear it at the weekend. I just thought I'd mention that because I looked up at the screen and my eyes felt the burning from that. Either of you have any other points to make about the game in general? Pete, anything to say?
No, I'd just like to remember that Kolasinac goal because that was my favourite, and I think it was quite telling that it was his coming on that changed things, and particularly after we saw the effect of him not playing at Liverpool.
Yeah, very good. Sorry, go on.
And then what he did manage to do about the next game we'll talk about.
The next thing we'll talk about, lovely. Matt, anything else on the Cologne game?
Don't think so. As you said, Wenger's coat, my goodness. I don't know if he gets told to wear these things or he has them lined up before the game and he chooses, but I really hope I never have to see that again.
I love the idea of him being in the dressing room and doing his talk, and then Steve Bold says, "Boss, can you come over and have a look at these coats? You've got to pick the coat to wear." If that isn't true, I don't want to know. I
assume that must happen.
Yeah, gets to pick his outfit, and obviously they don't want to clash. So Steve Bold has to just look angry next to him for 90 minutes.
Was he the same person who designed those two hideous second strips?
Maybe that's it. Maybe they've got some kind of job lot where they just get the whole get everything in one go from all the different designs together. All right, well look, we'll move on. Our next game is against Borisov. which is on the 28th, which is a week and a bit away, I believe. So attention then turned, after a good start in the Europa League, attention turned to Stamford Bridge, and I think we all had to fear a bit about this last week. Arsenal played Chelsea yesterday at lunchtime, and long story short, it was 0-0. And not only was it 0-0, which was a decent result for Arsenal, it was an excellent performance from Arsenal. Really organised, knew what they were doing, didn't really give Chelsea much time and space on the ball. Completely different from the away game at Liverpool. And whilst the win would have been nice, I think a draw was very acceptable. But it was one of those ones where even if we conceded in the last few minutes, I think we'd have been reasonably pleased with the performance. We'll start with the team news though. Some eyebrows raised with that same midfield that we started against Liverpool, specifically Ramsey and Xhaka. Ozil was injured, we heard, and Sanchez started on the bench with Iwobi, it seemed, given preference. Pete, any thoughts on that lineup? Any thoughts before the game started, at least on that lineup? Certainly the Sky pundits were bracing themselves for a bit of an onslaught, I think, against Arsenal.
I quite enjoyed the fact that it appeared at first that Wenger has decided to save Sanchez for the Europa League, not play him in the Prem. I did think that was quite a nice start, and however, I wonder if the most telling thing about that team was the fact that Ozil wasn't in it. And I know that apparently he was injured rather than dropped, but isn't it interesting that we pull out a performance like that that's much more solid and dependable when he's not available?
Well, we'll go to Matt with that. Matt, any thoughts on the team news and perhaps Ozil's non-involvement?
Well, the team sheet initially came out from the official Twitter account, and they had Lacazette on the wing and Welbeck up front, which scared a few people, but that was swiftly deleted and switched round. I wasn't expecting Iwobi to start at all. Obviously, Sanchez was in some doubt maybe that he'd start, but yeah, it didn't look like Iwobi was in line to start in that position, having started as one of the holding midfielders in the Europa League. As for Ozil, I think if I was to choose the team, I don't think I would have picked him for this kind of game, even if he was fit. I think we looked a lot better with that front three in terms of their pressing and tracking back, and we looked a lot more solid with it. So I think it's probably forced on Wenger that he didn't pick Ozil, but in the end, I'd say it definitely worked out better for us that he wasn't available in the nicest possible way.
In the nicest way. I mean, my notes are a bit vague, but I seem to remember the first 20 minutes, it was generally all Chelsea. But I thought from then on, really, we looked, not in charge, because that would be slightly red-tinted, I think. But we certainly looked. I wasn't particularly scared. The scariest I got in the first half, I think, was when I think it was the first half, was when Monreal decided to volley a back pass towards Cech. There was a particularly hard back pass which Cech dealt with admirably, to give him credit. I suppose the point in the first half was that Ramsey sort of, I say run, it was a sort of falling over stumble thing, but he kept going and he just toe poked it against the post. Lacazette wasn't quite able to do anything with the rebound. Pete, any other thoughts about the first half?
Yeah, there was also the Welbeck missed header.
Oh yes, of course.
And I think there was it's two chances. It's the Ramsey one plus the Lacazette one, isn't it? Which follows it straight up. Yeah, I mean the fact that we just looked so much more solid, and that it was a slightly dubious first 20 minutes, but it didn't look really like we were really being caused problems by Chelsea. It just looked like that was their period of the game, and once we'd worked through it, we took over. I thought, but maybe we didn't, as you say, boss it completely, but I think we certainly outplayed them for the rest of that half and the rest of the second half, and could have taken a deserved lead. I don't think Lacazette. I think the Lacazette it's too sharp a chance. It's too quick to really expect him to finish it. But it's just a shame that Ramsey one wasn't an inch to the left.
Yes, it is, isn't it? After he'd sort of fallen his way towards the goal, it would have been nice if he could have just finished that half. Matt, anything else about the first half? We've touched on Welbeck and Iwobi's pressing and what a good job they were doing. But anything else to note?
I think Ramsey, I thought he was probably our best player, and it wasn't that he wasn't offering anything going forward. He was still doing that, but he was probably a lot more defensively aware, which helped Xhaka a lot. And as we said, Iwobi and Welbeck were there. For Chelsea, yeah, I thought we contained them pretty well. I think there were a couple of times maybe from short corners or short free kicks that we looked a bit dodgy, but when the ball came into the box, we were pretty solid. I think there was one chance when Pedro went through and probably should have scored, but Czech did well to save. But yeah, from halfway through the first half towards the end, we looked the most likely. Bellerin got into some good positions, crossed well. And yeah, I think the pundits were as surprised as Arsenal fans. Graham Souness in particular, I think, was looking forward to an afternoon of slagging Arsenal off, and probably was a bit disappointed.
Yeah, I think he was. I probably wasn't getting my full attention in the build-up, but I think he was the first person I sort of clicked was essentially quite scared for Arsenal, although not to say that he wasn't going to enjoy it, but and I could see his point. I mean, I think maybe that's why I've got these 20 minutes in my head, because I needed that time myself to settle down and think, okay, this isn't quite as bad as I thought it could be. But of course, you never want to completely commit, because anything can happen, going the wrong way. It was a shame that Welbeck had to come off with an injury, of course, having done so well. So Giroud replaced him. Alexis did come on in the second half, as did El Neni, who managed to get booking. Bookings were good, weren't they? We managed to sort of get fouls, and not the booking so much, but we developed the art yesterday. It's not a new thing. It's quite new for Arsenal, though, of the what we call it, a tactical foul. And I can't remember who it was. Was it Monreal who just pushed Bakayoko over at one point? It wasn't even an attempt to disguise it. It's just I don't want you going through. I'm going to push you over. But if we're going to talk about disciplinary, sorry, go on, Pete.
He got away with that as well, didn't he?
I think I'm looking at the thing here. He doesn't appear to have had a card for that, but
it was great. He just shoved him. That's fair enough.
It's pretty basic. It's pretty basic stuff. So it was a shame where it went off. We did have the ball in the net, but there wasn't any doubt that Mustafi was offside. It might be Kolasinac actually was offside, but there was a couple of them offside anyway, so we can't complain about that. I mean, the only other thing worth noting, I suppose, or very important thing to note, the red card for David Luiz. Now, Luiz was being hassled by Sanchez, and I got the idea something was going to happen, and then the man mountain that is Kolasinac was in front of him, and Luiz went in a little high with his studs up, and it was a straight red. I don't think there's much doubt about the decision of the ref. Matt, any thoughts on that particular coming together?
Yeah, I thought Luiz actually played pretty well, but yeah, as you said, he overran the ball and stretched. Luckily for us, he went into Kolasinac, because anyone else, especially with our injury record, I think it could have been a broken leg. But Kolasinac, I think Luiz probably came off worse. Legs of steel, resisted any tackle. It wasn't a great tackle at all, a definite red card. And the way Kolasinac went down screaming, I did feel the worst, but only he could recover from potential leg-breaking tackle with some magic spray. Jumped up and was ready to commit his own very cynical foul. I think in the 92nd minute maybe, Hazard was breaking free on the wing, and he just went absolutely not and mowed him down, and immediately put his thumbs up as if to say, yep, it's a yellow card, don't care.
Yeah. See, he hasn't come up as a yellow card on here, and I'm sure he got a yellow card. I think this isn't perhaps what I'm looking at isn't quite up to date, but yeah, it was great that he was able to come back, just sort of shaking it off, and like you say, with a bit of spray, and that was that. Pete, any thoughts on that incident or anything else to mention?
I thought he poo-pooed the magic spray.
Oh, did you? I thought he was pointing at it.
But well, who knows? I didn't watch it that carefully, but. It was, one of those situations that we were speaking about earlier, when if you were on the pitch and you looked up and you saw Kolasinac coming towards you, what would you do? Well, David Luiz decided the best thing to do here is try and kick him really hard before he kicks me, and did foul him and did deserve, and did with a high boot, and did deserve to be sent off. And I think probably Kolasinac's little yelp was just to make sure he got sent off.
Well, it's an interesting idea. Yeah, the official website only has yellow cards for Bellerin and El Neni, but another source does confirm that Kolasinac got a yellow. It also only has the yellow and red for Louise, but Morata also got a yellow for Chelsea. I mean, overall, I've actually written in my notes, overall, good, and that was it. And that seems like a reasonably decent sort of summing up of what we saw. Not our best performance ever, but really solid, and that was what we wanted, I think, after the Liverpool performance. So yeah, we'll take the point. That was pretty good going. The only other comment I had, and this might just be something I noticed, is that Fabregas, but for all I like what he did for us, he seems to play now. I've written 90-minute temper tantrum. Because that's what he didn't seem to be happy with anything. He was moaning at the ref all the time. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but every time the camera was on Fabregas, he seemed to be moaning. It struck me as a very frustrated performance from him, but he's not really our issue anymore, if I can put it that way. So, but I just thought I'd mention that in case anyone else noticed it. Pete, anything else to comment on the game?
No, other than that Koscielny and Mustafi were pretty good, and I think that was part of the reason we looked so solid. It wasn't just about midfield and the pressing up front. They did a great job.
Yeah, we looked good everywhere, didn't we? I mean, even Cech, I think, had to make a save from Hazard, and that very very heavy back pass he got from Monreal. I think from back to front we were pretty well organised all the way. Matt, anything else on the game?
I agree with what you said about Fabregas. I think didn't help that he was absolutely atrocious. Probably didn't help his mood. And yeah, this was a much better performance in an away game. Probably, we weren't as optimistic in terms of, thinking that we can just pass around them, we can attack, and that'll be enough. We sat back, accepted, we might not have as much as the ball, we might not be able to attack as much as we wanted. I think that's a pretty good formula to try and keep to in future big away games, so hopefully we can.
There's a frustration, isn't there, that we haven't done this before, or haven't done it every time, because it's essentially the same personnel. Perhaps our problem was having Oxlade-Chamberlain in the team. Maybe that's what the...
wouldn't put it past him.
All right, well, great. Look, we're pleased with the result. A win would have been even better, but given what's been happening previously, we'll take that. In terms of the rest of the Premier League games of interest, Liverpool could only draw on one at home to Burnley. Man City, Man United both had big wins against Watford and Everton, respectively, and Spurs could only draw 0-0 at home with Swansea, which was a little bit of a surprise, to say the least. We're not exactly shooting at the Premier League table yet, but we're only a few points off Huddersfield and Brighton, or whoever it is. Perhaps it's not Brighton, but
that if we had won that game, we would have gone third. Or something ridiculous, or won it by 2 goals and would have gone third.
Potentially, if we'd won, we'd have had 9 points, and that would, at the moment, have put us 4th, just above Newcastle. In fact, we'd be behind Newcastle on goal difference unless we'd scored 3, if I'm looking at this right. So, yeah, we would have been in the top 4 or 5, should we say?
Yeah.
But we're not. But we can be at some point. We will see. Right then, I'm aware of the time. We've been going on for a while, so let's have a quick look at previews and, most importantly, of course, predictions. Now, just to bring us up to speed with the last round of our prediction competition, Pete is the happiest of us. He was the only person who wasn't pessimistic about Chelsea. He predicted a draw, whereas Matt and I both predicted defeats. So he gets a point for that. We all said we'd beat Cologne, but none of us got the score right. So time now to move on to our predictions for this week. Now, we've got 2 games coming up this week: Doncaster in the Carling Cup, or whatever it's called, and West Brom in the league. Now, West Brom game is next Monday, so we are going to do a pod probably directly after that, or possibly more likely on the Tuesday. We'll have to wait and see. So we need to preview both of those now. So let's do it one at a time. Where should we start? Well, Pete wasn't here last week, so Pete, would you like to give us a word, like literally a word if you like, on the Doncaster game and a prediction, please?
The League One. About all I know. And we usually beat League One sides about 4-1.
Are you saying? I just think 4-1 is exactly what I've said. So spooky. We've done that before. Okay, so 4-1 is your prediction.
Yes.
Okay, Matt, would you like to? What would you like to go for?
Again, I know nothing about Doncaster. Be interested to see if our team's similar to the Europa League one, or maybe more youngsters. I could copy you to ensure my lead, but I will go for 4-0 Arsenal.
4-0. I don't really know why I've gone for the 1. I thought there might be a chance of depending on the team we play, Doncaster might sneak through. Sorry, go on.
We're Arsenal, of course they'll score.
Yes, well, that's a good point as well. I'm looking at the league table. They're 19th in League One, and they've lost a number of games over the last few. They've lost 4 of the last 5 basically, and they drew the other ones, so they're not in top form. So there's everything there for an upset. All right, so we've got 2 4-0s and a 4-1. We've then got West Brom at home, as I say, next Monday. I'll go first. So I've gone for 4-1 for Doncaster. I'm going for 3-0 for West Brom, just on the basis that I'm feeling confident after the Chelsea game, and I'm hoping the team will get some momentum, particularly if they can get a midweek win against Doncaster. So I've gone 3-0 there. Matt, what do you fancy for that one?
Yeah, we got some really good fixtures coming up to hopefully build some momentum and some confidence. I think we know exactly what West Brom's tactics will be, just about whether we can break them down. I will go for 2-0 Arsenal.
2-0 Arsenal.
That's 2 clean sheets in a week. What have I done?
I know, it's crazy talk. Pete, a word on West Brom and a prediction, please.
It's not an end of season game, is it? We usually pace them at the end of the season.
We do, don't we? It seems that way.
See, I would want to say 2-0, but now we're a bit. What did you say, Matt?
I've gone for 3-0. Other Matt's gone for 2-0. I think you may be worrying. I think you may be going early for going tactical, given it was still in September.
I will go 3-1.
3-1.
Again.
To Arsenal, I assume. Yes, for all of that. Yeah, I mean, I didn't give my reasoning, but my reasoning is it's apart from feeling confident, and I know it's West Brom, and we wouldn't necessarily expect to score that many, but it's got a good feeling at the moment. So we'll see how that goes. All right then. Well, thank you both very much for your time, given how long we've been going, but there's a lot to talk about, and we've got through it. We'll be back next week at some point after the West Brom game to see how we've fared in the predictions, and I suppose just about more importantly to see how Arsenal have fared in the games. But until then, thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you very much. Not the most glamorous week ahead, but 2 wins would be great.
Exactly, Doncaster, West Brom, but we'll take the wins. Pete, thank you very much too.
Thank you very much. Look forward to a fun pod next time.
Well, fingers crossed. We'll certainly hope so. And thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll be back next week. Take care. Bye-bye.